because even when they were facing teams to the mid, there was frequently Cloud9 would then take third, or it would be in the finals and they took second. So it was always these two teams being the top two. It's just a matter of now, can Cloud9 get over that hump if TSM is going to be going all out, which you have to assume they are.
Yeah, you have to assume they are, but when we look at the last couple of weeks for TSM and when they have lost in the quarters, I want to bring up the point that, it's not like they've been playing totally off-the-wall compositions. They've been playing relatively meta. It's not like, in previous seasons, TSM have a bit of a reputation to not take the second half of the season all too seriously. It doesn't feel like the losses were due to that this time.
Yeah, it's more that they're usually hiding their strategies. Not so much that they're not taking it seriously, it's just that they don't want. They've basically get to a point where they're like, all right, we've got it locked in. We don't want teams to know what we're planning now, so we're going to play things that are clearly not what we're planning.
Wow.
And they haven't really been doing that, like you said, but this time around, we're going right back to the meta.
Yeah, very interesting Baron ban here, and then now Idris' first pick. That's the first time I've ever seen TSM do that, especially when Cath is open. Cloud9 will probably take Cath because Cath is a good counter into Idris, but instead they're going with the Grace, and then they're going to ban the Cath, it looks like.
3 carries, though, is the first 2 bans and pick. That's not something we see often.
Yeah, it is a very off-meta, and wow, Catherine is still open, so I don't think TSM is going to ban Catherine against themselves, so they'll probably ban a hero that, probably like Kestro, that could be good against Idris, for example, so let's see if that will come out. But very interesting draft so far.
And well, it's not... I almost am hesitant to even use the stats for Team Slimid because so many of their picks have a 100% win rate due to how dominant they were in the first split, but they are 4-0 with the Idris in their hands this season. So it is a pick that they have played, they have a bit of familiarity with. It's just going to be a question of will it be, this first pick worthy is what's kind of eye-opening.
Yeah, so Cloud9 can either go Adagio here, which is risky, or go with Kestro, which is what Old School can play, and it's pretty good with a Grace. She can escape if she gets in trouble, and Grace can then give her Divine Intervention, and then CC anybody that wants to dive onto her. So let's see if that Kestro will be picked up, or potentially they could go with an Adagio here.
The Adagio pick would be definitely leading towards a big melee bruiser as the final pick if they do it, which I'm wondering if they'd even be willing to reveal that that's what they're going for before it's the final pick, because we know they are.
There we go.
They're gonna go
you want to
first,
save jungle for last counter pick, because if you pick your jungle first, you can get hard countered.
Yeah.
And your laner wouldn't make a difference, so that's why. So now with Idris, there's probably be CP Idris, so most likely they're going to do some type of weapon hero. I think they would prefer CP Idris because a weapon Idris would not want to get close to the Grace. So Sky looks good right now. Samuel looks really good as well. Don't forget we have Baptiste, but I doubt that they'll play a Baptiste here. They may do Baptiste Captain with the Sky or a Samuel. So let's see what comes up from the draft from TSM here.
Yep, still options available.
Wait, Cath is open. I forgot.
Cath is open. You're absolutely correct. It's interesting to see how the draft is turning out here. Crawl is going to be the jungler that they lock in, but
and in Cath.
You can see that these guys clearly know each other incredibly well, just by the picks and the bans that are coming on through. These are not standard meta. These are, okay, we know how you like to play the meta. Let's tailor that around your style.
Yeah, they are extremely familiar with each other, and I'm sure both of these teams have had this matchup circled for a little bit now, expecting to meet each other. You almost have to expect to meet each other when you are these top two teams. So they are fully prepared, you would assume, with this Catherine pick going to come through as the final pick there. Very strong composition. Both teams are going to have a very strong composition, regardless of what this last pick is.
Yeah, this is a comp that TSM actually played against Temple Storm, and they destroyed Temple Storm. They played it really well. It's a third match, actually, so they know how this comp works. They can combo it. Adagio was a tough pick for Cloud9 because now they can't pick Petal. It would be double CP. They can't pick Sky, which is good into Crow and Cath. They have to go Weapon Adagio and then CP Petal or CP Sky here, which is a little bit risky, but they might try it because they need a hard counter pick into the composition, because no jungler really work. You can't really play Rona, you can't play Alpha, you can potentially play Blackfeather maybe. Oh, Fortress, wow. So it's going to be a Weapon Grace and a Fortress Captain.
This is one of the things about these two teams, right, is they have so many different ways that they can play the game. That no matter what kind of corner you're drafted into, they are going to have a pick that comes in and can match it. How are we feeling about the compositions then? Because these are not standard compositions to the same level of what we usually see. How do we feel this one's panned out, Bacon? Who's going to be aggressive here?
Well, Cloud9 needs to be very aggressive. Against this Krull, you need to be able to shut him down early. The Fortress is going to be used to try and do that. You know, having the mortal wounds and the percent health chunking that Fortress can provide is going to be extremely important. And if you can shut down the Krull early, you can then rotate that up into the lane and also shut down the Idris at the same time. So it is absolutely crucial for Cloud9 to find the early fights.
So a lot of pressure on Vonsi's shoulders. How are you feeling about this?
I like TSM's draft. They have so much CC and a double silence. That Kath is good into Grace because of that, so she can't get her Divine Intervention off.
Well, we'll see if they can chain that CC together. It's something that we know TSM are great at when it comes to their synergy and working as a unit. We'll see whether they can pull it off. It's time to jump into this semi-final. It's El Clasico here in North America between Team Solo Mid and Cloud9. Let us know who you are voting for on Twitter using that hashtag Vainglory8. It's time to jump onto the Halcyon Fold and get this semi-final underway.
Battle for number uno here at Scoundrel. First place seed, and only one of these two teams can have it. Currently tied at a equal point standing. But after this series, there will be one victor. It's Cloud9 with an aggressive move here. I love Joseph on the Fortress. Is this going to be a weapon power Fortress? Is that even possible? Let's see. Going to be Vonsi trying to secure his camp. He is able to secure it. Cloud9 don't get anything for this just yet, but they are going to try and take away these backs.
Yeah, and actually TSM, they did get one of their back camps here, and actually all of the experience is getting shared by C9 too, and actually all of the back experience for the C9 camps is going straight over to Best Chuck NA, who's going to take those for free. And actually TSM have done the very smart thing, which is just allowing Vonsi to head to lane to take that on board. FlashX gets a couple of stacks down. And I genuinely think TSM played this early game slightly better, although C9 do clear out the backside jungle of TSM quite effectively and put Vonsi ever so slightly behind. But Best Chuck NA's come out of it all right.
Yeah, no, he certainly has those back camps in his pocket. He's about to hit level 2 off it. As soon as there it is, he is level 2. Now he can come into lane, has a lot of safety against the Adagio. Idris into Adagio can be a pretty hard lane for the Idris at the early levels, but Best Chuck NA has only shown tendency to play this CP Idris, which means he will be, you know, buying up those crystal power items and converting his auto attack into range, which definitely helps him deal with
It's a weapon power Fortress, Dalsy.
It is, okay.
It's Tension Bow, I think, first item. And then it speaks volumes as to whether he actually goes for a straight-on hit Fortress. So we see a Tension Bow into Aftershock, which would be an interesting move. It's something that Fortress spikes really well with Aftershock, and the cooldown reduction is really good. So this could be Tension Bow Aftershock on Fortress for I Love Joseph. A lot of burst damage, a lot of good ways at putting pressure onto Vonsi and Best Chuck. But this is Vonsi's Cruel, this is Best Chuck NA's CP Idris, and FlashX has got probably the most powerful captain in the game right now. The double silence from him will be pretty ridiculous once he hits the Echo. It's a very unique composition from C9, and they have been the innovators in terms of uniqueness really over the course of this split. TSM less so. Really looking forward to seeing how this works out.
So it's quite interesting at Scoundrel because we're at the end of 2.6 here. These aims being played out now will be the last on this patch, this update. Afterwards, the Unified Western Live Championship is going to be played on 2.7. So really there's nothing to hide right now. You're not keeping strategies for the Unified Western Live Championship. You're going to be playing with an entirely new meta, and there were so many different changes to not only heroes but items as well, which means I'm expecting an entirely new set of heroes, powerful in the meta. You know, Reza being introduced, we'll have to see how he plays out as well. And so usually at this point you sometimes see teams hiding strategy, but right now it's the dregs of the barrel almost coming out, and the heroes that people have been sitting on all season coming out, as well as TSM. You know, this composition with the crew has been so prominent for them as Vonsi's trying to find a kill into Joseph. Weapon power Fortress, that's great, Holy Nova. Vonsi in trouble, FlashX trying to get in there to help on out. Has the Dragon Blood contract, does a lot of burst damage, but it is going to be first blood to Gabe Fizzle, leading his team to victory. FlashX now, he's going to go down. It will be Joseph picking up that kill fairly simply. 2-0 to Cloud9, and they're going to get the lead.
I feel like that's classic Vonsi. That's like Vonsi of old, where he'll try and 1v2 the enemy jungle when it's probably not the best scenario to try and do so. FlashX attempted to bail him out, but unfortunately Vonsi caught out, didn't get the surprise push onto I Love Joseph because the flare from Gabe Fizzle came down, and it was really good presence by C9 to realize that Vonsi had head into their jungle, and they were able to cut him off with a rotation from Gabe. That's what C9 is really good at doing. They are so good at collapsing and responding to calls and making rotations for the team. And it's something they've always been good at because they're so good at sharing experience as well. This time they just managed to punish Von-C along with it.
Incredible stuff. That's a 4-minute fountain and 4-minute alternating current. And let's talk about old school Scoundrel. Yesterday we had the treat of watching Araki Zoro's Adagio, one of the people in North America who's known for that pick. Well, the other one, and probably one of the best Adagios in the world as far as lane Adagio is concerned, is Old School here. He has piloted this hero to much success over his Vainglory career. Currently, he's trying to do so against the CP Idris. Best Chuck NA has that Shadow Glass, which means he has his divergent paths, the range as well. So exciting to see how Cloud9 play this out.
I actually think that the win condition for TSM is just literally killing Old School, because I feel like as this build with Fortress, the damage is eventually going to fall off pretty significantly. So if you go for this Shatterglass build, which is, I think in this situation the better build for Idris over any other sort of path, you just try and burst out Old School as best you can as FlashX now has to escape.
Oh, FlashX, Holy Nova, he is wholly dead, Scoundrel. 3 kills to Cloud9 here already, and Best Chuck NA struggles, I think, to keep himself alive, peel for himself until he gets that Shimmer Strike, so he has to be careful that he doesn't get aggressed onto.
Yeah, it looks like we're going to see Von-C going towards the Tension Bow first. He's trying to set up for a gank here. Doesn't have that Tension Bow spike. Is the ultimate.
Straight onto Gabe Vizzle. He's going to lay down a Holy Nova and pushes everyone back. TSM not able to find a kill. Not the prime target they wanted, Old School, but couldn't get it.
No, it was just a little bit off kilter there as FlashX now heads back to lane. I think I've got to give credit to Gabe Vizzle here. Some of these Holy Novas have been absolutely team or sort of skirmish changing as FlashX moves in again, searching for another stun, just trying to stack up that Catherine heroic perk. One of the things that's made her so powerful on the current 2.6 update is that she now gets 2 armor and magic resist per stack instead of 1, meaning she scales up twice as quickly to that powerful tanky late game support that often trumps other captains because she doesn't rely on the items to have those kind of resistances. Still going for it, still stacking.
9 stacks now. It's pretty impressive stuff from FlashX. It's really hard to actually get away with stacking like this, but I guess for Cloud9 they don't have a huge amount of punish with just this Adagio and this Grace right now. At this point, Scoundrel, Best Chuck doing his best to keep Old School in lane. Old School has 1800 gold, but so does Best Chuck, and you know, Von-C's moved up into the lane. He has that From Hell's Heart available to him. He's going to be looking for another stun. Oh, this is a great combination, but how somehow Old School escapes it? How did he get away? Can he survive? The smite's there. Another Holy Nova going to stop Von-C. He is in so much trouble. He's getting aggressed upon. He's going to get bursted on down, it seems, and he's surviving, but it's not for long. FlashX going to go down. It's 2 kills to Cloud9. Chuck running. Look at Joseph's health as well, but he's going to get this Divine Intervention. 400, and now he's seeking out Best Chuck. Tension Bow proc. Oh, but a Shimmer Strike and an auto attack. Great stuff from Best Chuck, keeping himself alive and just saying, bruh, I'm interested. You can't do that.
Absolute outplay from Best Chuck, but we need to talk about these chain CC attempts from TSM. The theory is so good for it. Again, Old School definitely a target for this team, but somehow these From Hell's Hearts are being soaked up by Gabe Vizzle, even though it feels like they were landing on Old School. Gabe Vizzle, the MVP in so many ways, able to protect Old School so easily from these chain CC attempts from TSM, and then TSM committing too hard after the CC hasn't hit. Unfortunately, Gabe Vizzle too tanky to take down with this Cruel right now, and was able to soak up the majority of the damage. I feel like TSM are now going to be waiting for that Poison Shiv spike for Von-C. That's a big one, given the amount of healing coming out from C9. I definitely think that the Poison Shiv needs to be finished now before this next team fight breaks out. And it is going to be a full Weapon Power Fortress, so their own Poison Shiv coming out for him. This is just not something that I think I've ever seen in competitive play, Dalsy.
Right, this isn't Blitzing Scoundrel. This isn't, you know, that the talent that allows for Weapon Power Fortress to be a thing, giving him Weapon Power scaling on his abilities. No, this is just normal Vainglory here. This is normal 3v3 competitive, and Weapon Power Fortress, just a really interesting pick for Cloud9, but they're making it work. They've got a huge kill lead, not a gold lead just yet. They haven't been able to turn it into objectives, and that was some nice damage coming out of Best Chuck there. Able to just lay down a lot of hurt onto that turret. Now he has that alternating current complete.
That's the one silver lining for TSM right now, that actually, despite all of this action, despite things going slightly awry, you've got a late-game powerhouse carry, potentially one of the best CP late-game carries in the game, and is now at 2 items at 9 minutes. 105 farm, alternating current, Shatterglass finished up. Once Broken Myth comes through, that's a really big thing for Chuck. Vonsi is now probably soon to be able to complete his Poison Shiv. Interestingly, that FlashX has gone for Atlas Pauldron's second here. It's both good against the alternating current of Old School, but also good against this attack speed, weapon power Fortress.
You know what's crazy as well? Best Chuck, wow, number 5 breaking out. That's going to be a nice block from Gabe. The turret does go down. Old School's aggressed upon. Here comes Joseph. Divine Intervention keeps Gabe Vizzle alive. They're going on to Von C here, looking for the kills. Gabe Vizzle knocks up FlashX, and FlashX gets bursted on down. TSM walking away, but it is going to be a Chakram not quite connecting for Best Chuck. If that hit, that could have been huge, but he can still turn on to Gabe Vizzle. That was a terrible mistake by Gabe Vizzle, overestimating his protection given. I'm so impressed. Best Chuck NA currently sitting at 12 CS a minute. That is something you just don't see so often, Scoundrel. You know, these guys are the best. Best Chuck, arguably one of the best laners in the world. You know, Old School known for his incredible gold income, but 12 CS a minute on a CP Idris, that late game point power spike is coming so much earlier.
He's got 2,200 gold in the bank right now in Dalsy. Best Chuck's Idris, I think, especially CP, is just something else. Single-handedly carrying in terms of damage output in these fights. That was just Best Chuck kiting backwards, by the way. Chakram sitting multiple members, forcing the fountain obviously early on from Old School to from Gabe Vizzle too, and then they were able to turn 2 versus 3 because there just wasn't anything left in the tank for C9 to try and fight up with. Vonsi should be able to complete his Poison Shiv. Yes, he will. He's got another infusion in the bank as well. So, I mean, this is pretty good item spikes for TSM. Now you just need to get tanky and soak the damage and let Best Chuck carry the late game.
Yeah, FlashX has currently just been the sacrificial lamb for them over and over again, which is great for Best Chuck because he's been allowed to sit in lane and farm. He is sitting just 200 gold away from his broken Mythic Scoundrel. 12 minutes. That is an insane timing. It's TSM looking for an engage onto Old School. The Wolves get popped by this weapon power Fortress, and Joseph trying to charge on in. That's a stun onto Gabe Vizzle. This time not blocking up the impossible, but somehow Old School turns the fight around, and it's not. FlashX able to find a kill. Divine Intervention onto Joseph. That's a double for Old School's Adagio. And Cloud9 now looking to try and take a turret.
Buck should be able to clear the wave here, but he might have to be careful. The dive potential with the Fortress is pretty good. They are going to go for it.
Yeah, he's got that Shimmer Strike. Doesn't have any kiting potential without the Frostburn. It's definitely the risk of not going Frostburn on CP Idris. Joseph, though, able to tank up that turret, and it is now the gold adventure stacking up here for Cloud9. I guess the silver lining, Scoundrel, is at 12 minutes, and Best Chuck can finish his Broken Myth. And a Broken Myth on a CP Idris is just such a huge power spike.
Yeah, absolutely. He's got the gold in the bank to do it. They could actually go for gold mine here and be uncontested, and that's what TSM are going to do. C9 will react to it, however. They might not be quick enough, and they're going to give this over, you feel. It's a good move by TSM. Really good time to take gold mine if you're behind is when the enemy has just backed from an aggressive move, especially like you saw there onto the turret where they were all low, didn't have the item cooldowns to be able to contest. If you're able to then group and take gold mine, you can kind of sneak it before the enemy can regroup and get back to you to try and fight for it, and that's what TSM just did there. Echo now for Gabe Vizzle. This healing is just ridiculous from them. They've got the Gift of Fire, they've got the double Grace ultimate. TSM, these are going to be very elongated fights, which is why the Broken Myth is going to be even more powerful for Best Chuck, and that's where Best Chuck realistically now is the main carry for TSM. Vonsi is just going to be a weakness stack bot, you feel, for the most part. A lot of this is now going to be peeling for Best Chuck as best you can, and I think if I was FlashX now, I'd either be going for potentially a Crucible for Old School's Burst of Judgment, which I think should be a priority, or you can go for the Echo for the teamfight control of the double silence.
Yeah, Best Chuck currently looking like he's going to be working towards an Eve of Harvest as his 4th damage item as well. Just provides so much sustain, which is great, especially because there is no healing source coming out of TSM other than the fountain that FlashX can provide. I am a little bit curious as to why Joseph decided Poison Shiv on Fortress was necessary, considering he already applies Mortal Wounds as a Fortress.
It's like a double mortal wound bot, right? Doesn't feel like entirely necessary. They stand up here.
Oh dear, Game Fizzle is completely caught out. Look at the damage onto him. He just goes down immediately. That's gonna be Joseph in trouble. Best Chuck kiting back, and Best Chuck looking for a kill, but Old School's able to take down the life of Von C. There it is. The chakram going through. Best Chuck dodges the Verse of Judgment, and it is gonna be no kills going over to him. Wow, Old School walks away with 2. Did not look like he should be able to, but he did. And Cloud9 going to maintain this gold lead.
Is FlashX going for a null wave gauntlet now over a Crucible? Could be the case.
The reason for it would be because the Echo is there on Gabe Fizzle, so you know the Grace focus her down. She can't use her Fountain, she can't use her Echo, which means she only gets 1 Divine Intervention.
I guess the only thing that maybe is for TSM is that they are relying on FlashX to look for a stun, or for Von C to look for a stun if Verse of Judgment is channeled. That's the only thing I can think of here being the case, that you wouldn't want to prioritize a Crucible in this specific scenario, because as a composition that has a Cruel and a Catherine, you are both very, very vulnerable to that Verse of Judgment being channeled and actually finding a stun if you don't have the Crucible. So that's the only thing I can think of that TSM would be thinking about when it comes to a team fight if they don't have that Crucible on board. We need to have a look at also, you mentioned about this Weapon Power Fortress having the Poison Shiv. What it does provide is sustain for him, remember. He is going to be chasing down targets looking for basic attacks. It's another form of sustain, already on top of the incredible sustain that they have regardless. Weapon Power Fortress can deliver Gift of Fire onto Best Chuck and A quite readily, using his A, which means that he's able to slow down Best Chuck and A as a target if he's going to go for him, and he's got incredible mobility. You know, he can just run at targets so easily, which, you know, provides a lot of useful tools for weapon power carries, especially melee weapon power carries.
Can we just talk about the difference in philosophy between Old School and Best Chuck here? Best Chuck looking to finish his 4th damage item, whereas Old School has opted in for defense as well as that tier 3 boots. Hasn't even finished his 3rd here at Scoundrel. Just a complete difference in playstyle in the lane. And it's hard to say whether one's right and one's wrong. I think that there's no right answer here.
Let's talk about philosophy of team compositions if you want to go into that. When you have a composition that has got so much sustain, then your philosophy can actually relax on damage output because you have the ability to deal longer periods of damage because you have longer amounts of, or greater amounts of sustain, giving you longer time frames of which you can apply that damage because you're obviously taking less damage because you're sustaining. 4
damage items before Old School gets 3.
I know it's pretty insane, but that's what TSM need to do, right? They don't have sustain in their composition, so they are about burst and kiting backwards and getting huge damage onto someone that can output and out DPS the sustain coming through from C9. So it's just team compositional differences. Old School, maybe in a different team composition, would have had 3 damage items by now, but because they've got double Grace Ultimate, Gift of Fire, Joseph has got his own form of sustain with the Poison Shiv, they are looking to play longer team fights because they have the ability to do so.
Well, it is going to be this Kraken started up. The Norwave Gauntlet has just been finished by FlashX. Let's see if he can get it onto Gabe Fizzle. Let's see if Gabe Fizzle can be the Crucible Master and block that one up. Would be a pretty big usage of a Crucible just for that Norwave Gauntlet, but also a usage I think that's so necessary for the Grace when she relies on items so heavily. TSM looking for an engage perhaps. They're just dancing right now at Scoundrel. Both teams not really wanting to pull the trigger. I feel like TSM relies on Cloud9 engaging first.
Yeah, I think the Null Wave Gauntlet makes a lot of sense given the way that TSM want to play these fights. It's just literally try and go in, shut down Gabe Fizzle. If you can Null Wave Gauntlet him without having his own reflex block to block it, then you can look to try and burst Old School. That might be the way they're looking to play this. Shuts down the Grace, but it is a very all-in item. So you're not playing that sort of kite back potential here from the CP Idris. It's a kind of an all-in item here for FlashX.
A lot of damage done to Gabe Fizzle here. TSM starting to show that Best Chuck on this CP Idris could just be the best CP Idris in the world. Just plays this to such perfection time and time again for TSM. It's such a beautiful thing to watch. Currently TSM just looking to try and take control over the map. Cloud9 have been so hesitant. Right now, they're trying to get Old School's 3rd damage item completed so that they can look for the fight. Old School, what will he go for? As he see, and it looks like it will be an Eve of Harvest, perhaps? Is he got the gold? No, it's Frostburn. Okay. Looking for the slows makes sense, especially considering they have a chase down composition.
Yeah, really good at slowing down Best Chuck if he becomes the target, but also very good at peeling back against Von C and FlashX. You know, you have that ability to slow them down, making it easier for Old School to find an escape route. Looks like they're going to shove the lane here. They're going to force TSM to react. They've got that positional advantage. They can say, sit around, crack and pit all you like, but we're going to shove up to your tier 2 turret. And now TSM are forced to make a move.
Yeah, forces Vonsi out of bushes as well, so he doesn't get that speed buff that he gets. And now Cloud9 are finally looking for the fight. Norwave Gauntlet has gone on to Gabe Vizzle, but he crucibles it like a master. Gabe Vizzle just doesn't miss with these crucibles. And he says, nah, FlashX, I got my items still. It's going to be a re-engage coming out of Cloud9. It's going to be Best Chuck looking to get away. That's a huge Hell's Heart onto Old School, but there's no damage to be found. Vonsi taking work. Oh, Best Chuck, can he escape this? Atlas goes out, but Best Chuck is almost dead. He's got the mortal wounds on him, and the Divine Intervention keeps Joseph alive. Old School goes forward, looks for a double. Best Chuck will go down. It's an ace for Cloud9, and they play such a patient game. It's a clean ace, the Kraken, and many turrets to be had.
Oh, there's just so much sustain from C9. 800 heals from Gabe Vizzle. Vonsi unable to apply mortal wounds to a target because it's so difficult for him to stick versus that slow, the knock-up, the damage reduction as well from Gabe Vizzle. It is so difficult to burst a target when there's a Grace on the composition because you get the 40% damage reduction from the Holy Shield and the ridiculous single target heal that she provides in Update 2.6. And TSM haven't really built to kite backwards here. You don't have the Frostburn on Best Chuck and A, so he's getting chased down quite easily. FlashX hasn't built something like a Crucible to protect his team from these kind of engages. They're trying to fight in the Dragon's mouth, but the Dragon's mouth is just spewing fire. And Old School and is now with that 3 damage item build, very hard to take down and has the ability to self-peel with the Frostburn.
Incredible stuff. If Gabe Vizzle blocks up Norwave every time, then you just feel like there's the healing potential is just so huge for Cloud9 that they just will not lose their lives. Kraken pushing onto this choke point turret. Old School just that man to take down the turret from a range. Waiting for an opportunity for Cloud9 to jump on in. As soon as that turret goes down, they may just go for it. In fact, they're going for it first. Oh, 2-man Holy Nova goes out. Gabe Vizzle with the plays. It's going to be the turret falling as well. They can self-sustain, they can heal, they can take away the jungle. They've got what they wanted. 2 turrets off of that A6 Scoundrel means that they do get a gold advantage and a Crystal Sentry taken as well.
It feels like TSM have to lose this mentality of single target focus. Even with the Cruel, I know that's a hard thing to do, but I really, really want to see them potentially look towards more of a holistic approach to these team fights. Just peeling back, getting the Echo as soon as possible for FlashX, which is where he's working towards. Double Silence coming out and allowing Best Chuck to kite backwards, build those broken mid stacks and deal the damage necessary to carry. Trying to dive in on Old School is just not going to work now. You just don't have the potential to do so as FlashX takes the brunt of the damage.
Yeah, it's going to be a Holy Nova knocking up FlashX. Here come the Wolves as well. Great Crucible on the Silence. That means that Gabe Vizzle can now start healing. Joseph in the midst of it all. Verse of Judgment coming on down. It's a stun onto 2. It's going to be another Holy Nova. It's just ridiculous stuff. A double for Old School, and Best Chuck trying to kite back. He might find a kill. He does. That's 1. Shimmer Strike comes through. Look at that Chakram dance. Best Chuck looking for a second. Can he find it? Best Chuck crazy. Still alive. Sustaining it through. Gabe Vizzle in so much trouble. Look at the damage he outputs through the hill. It misses. That is the play right here. And now he's going to look to see if he can't punish with it. Best Chuck soloing out that fight.
It wasn't just a 2-man stun, Dowsey. It was a 3-man stun from Old School. It caught Best Chuck at the very edge of it as well. I thought that was game over for TSM, but the 9 broken myth stacks I think that Best Chuck had by that point. And that is the CP Idris in the late game. Just so difficult. Joseph jumps in.
Does jump in. Atlas's as well. It's pretty huge. But look at this. Best Chuck just going forward. Joseph, he has to pop his boots to get away. That's just Best Chuck showing that he is a scary, scary threat right now. There's an Echo. Finished now for FlashX here at Scoundrel. We had this conversation, I believe it was last week, maybe it was even yesterday, that generally you build Echo before Norwave on Catherine. Now it's a double silence for FlashX, perhaps a little bit late in the game at 23 minutes. How impactful can this be?
Well, it can be so impactful in the sense that it is so good at controlling these team fights in an AoE area, which is where I think TSM need to sort of move their focus to. Cruel is not an AoE-focused hero. He's very single-target focused, but now that they've got the 2 silences, it can really shut down at least part of the sustain. We've got a fight breaking out, though.
We do, and it is so much damage coming out already. There's the first silence going out. Here's the second, but it's not doing enough. Fonzie goes down. Can Best Chuck trade the life is the question. The Chakram's not in range. Flash Heck's going to go down. It's a double kill for Old School, and he's going fourth looking for more. The heal onto him. 890. That is so much. This time Best Chuck and A not looking for the three-man outplay. Maybe he is. That's going to be Joseph going very low. Can he find the kill? Shimmer Strike comes forward, but there's no Chakram dancing this time. And it is just going to be Best Chuck taken down. A triple for Old School. They're going to push straight into the base here, Scoundrel, and look to take the lead over TSM.
Man, Vonsi on this Cruel didn't get the mid-game advantages that he would have liked, and the sustain and the protection, the Holy Novas, the heals made it so difficult for him to function in these late-game fights. 1 and 7 and Flash X on this Catherine. It's hard to pinpoint where things went wrong. It realistically, for the most part, was just Best Chuck carrying TSM through the majority of this game, but Flash X and Von C really felt that they struggled to impact this mid-game. They really struggled and fell behind in these team fights. You maybe have to question whether Crucible was needed earlier, whether that Null Wave got the work done that it was necessary. Maybe you should have gone towards a Crucible earlier to protect your team, because realistically it came down to Best Chuck and A being the key component of the TSM composition, and everything you could do to protect him exemplifies and excels your win condition. TSM, I don't really think, were on that wavelength.
No, it's pretty incredible stuff here at Scoundrel. Cloud9 with a win in game 1. Weapon now at Fortress with a win on the board. How's that for the stats? Let's go back to our desk to break down that match.
Cloud9 with the superior melee composition there. When we got into those team fights, they were able to destroy TSM time and time again. Best Chuck tried his best there in some of the fights, but it wasn't enough to consistently take down Cloud9.
Yeah, and unfortunately for Team Soul Mid, it was, despite Best Chuck's best efforts, the other two teammates just not pulling their weight at all. Especially, I'm going to be harping on Von C a little bit during a lot of these replays, because there were multiple times. The early game was just really strong play from Cloud9, being able to find their opportunities. But once we got into the mid game, there were multiple fights where Von C ends up kind of running around almost in a circle, trying to get onto one of these targets, not having the ability to, dying as a Kroll while not silenced or stunned without using a Spectral Smite. Like, these happened multiple times in these fights and are just things that are almost just inexcusable as a Kroll to be having happen to you.
Yeah, and it was key because Cloud9, although got ahead on kills, etc., TSM actually won the objective game. They got Goldmine, they got Turret, and at the 18-minute mark, the gold lead was even at 38k. So honestly, Cloud9 could have pushed the early game even harder because Grace is really good into Cruel and here. And you can see that Grace, Gabe's Holy Novas have been so critical to them winning so many key fights. And I don't know why Flash didn't get a Crucible. I felt like Adagio landing his ultimates too helped win some key fights. So if those ultimates were blocked, TSM probably could have won those fights, because I feel like TSM's composition was better because of CP Idris' late game. We saw the power of CP Idris there. It's just they didn't coordinate and they didn't have the right items. I felt like a Crucible would have been better. You don't need War Treads at that early, and they could have won this game. But Cloud9 just executed better, and Gabe was a key part of that.
Yeah, Old School as well had an incredible scoreline. He was able to just sit at the side of these fights and just dish out the damage on his signature pick.
Yeah, the Adagio for Old School is just always such a dominant showing, a dominant force on the fold, and able to just play safe. The weapon Fortress, I think, caught a lot of people by surprise. Maybe being inspired by the talents that were released, because all of those are weapon-oriented. A lot of people were questioning, why are these talents even weapon-oriented? Yeah. And this is why, because Fortress actually has some pretty solid utility when you go this weapon
path. And Old School blocked that Cruel ultimate actually to prevent it. And I felt like as TSM, they could have played, because Cloud9's composition wants to dive. Don't dive for them. Let CP Idris poke. Let them get stacks. And then fight, force a fight. Like, let Chuck stack up. That's how CP Idris plays out. He's like a mage. He's not like a weapon Idris. He doesn't want to engage. He wants to poke with his chakram, do tons of damage, get stacked, and then force a fight. And I felt like they were diving with Cruel too hard, and they should have just let CP Idris poke, because the chakram outranges the entire team. Let Joseph jump in, stun him when he tries to use an ability, and then just stack on him. Like right here, they could have done that, but gave his son instead, but instead of Joseph. And I felt like they just needed to back off and just kite and let CP Idris stack up and then reinitiate. Every time they dove, it just didn't work. Cruel kept dying, kept getting focused. and it was not helping every single fight there. And Vonsi just kept dying and dying. He's 1-7 at this point in this game.
Yeah, and FlashX as well, finishing the game on a very negative scoreline, and that's kind of the story of TSM in this game. But Cloud9 on the other side of the board, some exceptional scorelines. I mean, just on this replay alone, you've got, what, 10, 1, and 4 there on Old School. On his Adagio, he did an excellent job. I love Joseph, not quite the same scoreline in terms of those kills, but he had 13 assists for himself, and gave Bizzle, obviously, 3 kills and 10 assists for himself as well. You can tell that this is a clear team effort from the likes of Cloud9, and I really, really want to highlight once again the team fighting from this team. Like, every single fight, they understood what they needed to do, and they executed it perfectly.
Yeah, they just kept cutting Crow, like I said, and Vonsi, I don't know why he was so aggressive. And also Gabe, like, just minimized, like, he got so many Holy Novas on Flash and onto Vonsi. And honestly, if you look at the game, Gabe really carried these teams fight because he was able to CC them, and then Joseph and Old School just focus down Crow and just delete them.
And speaking of the team fighting that you were talking about, 18 kills in the game, 17, 15, and 13 on the kill participation for the side of Cloud9. So all of them having exceptionally high kill participation in that game just kind of showcases the level of team play that they had.
And showcases why they are one of these top 2 teams. And now they have a 1-0 advantage over TSM. This is something that they have been desperate for this entire season, and now they finally have the advantage.
I don't know why they're giving them Grace again. I think it's just better to ban Grace. And, you know, if they pick Vox, it's fine. CP Idris actually is better than Vox late game. CP Idris is actually one of the best late game carries next to Baron in the entire game based on his damage per second numbers and his itemization. So giving Cloud9 Grace again is super, super risky. Cloud9 is definitely going to ban Cath here because they have to, because of the Baptiste pick here. And I think they're probably going to ban either Adagio or Glaive here, but I think Adagio might be the better ban so that they deny it from Cloud9 and not give them the Grace Adagio combination.
Yeah, with Adagio taken off the table though, we're starting to run out of carries that are available, especially if something like an Idris ban came out as well. Like, you could be looking at some very fringe picks for these guys.
Yeah.
It's definitely going to be stretching the hero pools a bit, perhaps, and there is that Adagio ban, so they're definitely going to have to change things up. We'll see what Cloud9 wants to do.
Yeah, Cath ban, Idris pick, Cloud9 is going to take Cruel most likely, and they're going to get the Cruel with maybe, honestly, a Celeste, a CP Ringo could work. There's a few options for them from a CP laner standpoint. Oh, actually, they're going to pick Kestrel, so that leaves CP Idris open, so or Weapon Idris in general, which is great with Grace because Grace wants to dive into the composition. So I think Idris will be picked up with potentially a Crew or something. So let's see.
So I'm curious about this Kestrel. Do we think that this is a jungle Kestrel for Vonsi, or do we think that's going towards the lane here?
I think it's likely to be in the lane. Vonsi, it's not really his playstyle to play the Crystal Kestrel. You know he is a phenomenal Kestrel player, but if he's going to take the Kestrel, it's typically done in the weapon style, so he can be super aggressive with it and try and go and constantly steal camps away. You can still do that with the Crystal Kestrel, but once you roll around to the late game, you have to play a lot more defensive and just try and set up those active camo traps. So I would anticipate that going into the lane for Best Chuck, and I assume Cloud9 will as well.
Well, we'll see how they're going to react to that one. Glaive is going to be the pick.
Ooh,
Historically
Glaive.
very good into Kestrel.
Yeah, but Baptiste counters Glaive because the Ordain can cancel a lot of afterburns like we've seen in other games in EU and NA. So with Glaive being picked here, it's going to be a weapon Glaive for sure. And then now they can go with Koshka or something really, really aggressive. And even potentially Taka, but I doubt it. But I think Koshka looks like a really good pick here, or Samuel would be the picks, I feel. If they want to counter Baptiste specifically, though, they probably go with the CP Blackfeather because he can escape the Baptiste, he can poke TSM, his composition, and a Pedo comes out. Wow, because they know that TSM probably wants to pick Crow here. But Crow isn't good in Grace, so it just doesn't matter. Like, don't play Crow into Grace, period.
Well, we'll see what the choice is going to be here. Obviously, the Petal, historically, is going to be a counter pick. We usually see it on that B side. It was Aeon that we know for picking it on this A side and being able to run away with it. We'll see whether Joseph can have similar success here.
Yeah, that being said, though, we have seen a Krull beat a Petal before. I believe it was I Love Joseph's Krull that beat a Petal, so it's definitely going to be interesting.
Whoa.
But a Saw coming out. Our second Saw today. And,
this is interesting draft. It's
very
got to be a
interesting.
CP Saw because Weapon would be to get destroyed by Grace and Glaive here. So it's going to be a CP Saw.
I gotta be honest, guys. I'm a little bit perplexed on this one. Like,
So
what does this CP Saw offer to the team?
here's why. CP Saw was a counter to Fortress back then. He is anti-dive. You cannot dive a CP Saw that's spun up with Broken Myth, Shatterglass. He does missing % health damage from his cannon ultimate, and he has a shank, so he can delete someone instantly, and Grace's Divine Intervention won't do anything because he has 2 missing health abilities. So that's why. And Kestrel is so much burst, and you have a counter dive, which is the Fearsome Shade as well.
Okay, so this is the come at me, bro, kind of composition where they're just going to sit there and wait for Cloud9 to jump into them. I mean, do you think Cloud9 are going to be able to deal with this?
They should be able to, because while, yes, you can have a lot of effect with the Saw trying to counter and engage, if Grace, just as soon as the Suppressing Fire comes out, jumps in with a Benediction and immediately drops a Holy Nova, that's almost a guaranteed stun.
All right, well, we'll see whether they can get that off and shut down this CP Saw. If it is indeed a CP Saw, we'll have to find out. It's time to jump into game number 2 here. Hashtag Vainglory8 on Twitter to let us know who you want to take this series. But TSM are against the ropes right here. It could be Cloud9 as seed number 1 if they can't shut down this Saw. Let's get onto the fold.
Scoundrel, when you see a Batiste, Kestrel, and Saw locked in, there's multiple combinations that those heroes can play, but I bet you didn't guess that it's going to be Von C on the Saw, Flash X on the Batiste, and Best Chuck on that Kestrel.
It's so interesting to see a Saw. The last time I saw a Saw competitively, I think, was in the challenge battles when we saw Calamity Reborn pilot it, or it might have been in VGL finals in the Challenger series where Calamity Reborn piloted a double weapon power composition. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. This could actually be a double weapon power composition where you basically go full armor shred on Von C. Now, what Saw is so good at, for those of you who might not be new to Vainglory, Saw does this thing where he gains attack speed the more that he attacks, and he's got abilities that ramp it up as well. That means you can apply things that are on hit very quickly, the likes of Bonesaw, for instance. And that builds armor shredding stacks. You can apply those so quickly, and that'll be very good when you've got Best Chuck maybe going for a Glimmer Shot focused build, looking for big impact skill shots, which are weapon power scaling.
You can actually see it underneath his health bar, those white dots that stack up. That's when he has that attack speed build up right now, full, but it also makes him slow. Means that TSM here are struggling to get into the jungle of Cloud9 and make this invade work. They are taking out the Munions. You see these little seeds around Joseph. Extra damage there, and if they clear those Munions, then there's not much damage. But now Cloud9 are looking, trying to punish Von C. Von C, no fear, just fight, but the fight goes wrong, and it is going to be old school with First Blood. Flash X trying to find Gabe Vizzle, trying to get one on his captain friend, but it's going to be Gabe Vizzle swiping him away. A double kill to Cloud9, and it's deja vu of game 1.
Yeah, but Best Chuck and A has tried to freeze the lane as best he can. It's actually the minion wave is stacked up for him, so he will shove into old school. And that is what you can do. Notice the position of the lane right there. That's where it has been for the majority. Old school pushed Chuck and A in, and that then allowed him to move from lane pretty much without reprise to go and support the invade from the TSM squad to then capitalize and collapse on them. So that was a really good use of lane mechanics from Old School to say, I'm going to shove Best Chuck and A in. The invade came out, and that allowed C9 with pretty much very few drawbacks to send Old School and force a 2 versus 3. That was a really nice piece of early game maneuvering from the TSM roster. It is actually going to be CP Saw, by the way, so there we go.
Yeah. There's the Dank Shank coming out, the Roadie Run, and Gabe Vizzle gonna go down. It's TSM finding another kill for themselves. Von C on that CP Saw, as soon as he stacks up the Crystal Power, that Roadie Run, or obviously as we call it, the Dank Shank, is going to do a lot of damage.
So the double weapon blade here from Saw was just specifically to help him clear the jungle early, because the problem with CP Saw is obviously it's so slow and your abilities are on quite long cooldowns that clearing the jungle camps early on can be quite rigorous and time consuming if you don't have any weapon power behind you. So Von C's gone for the double weapon blade to allow him to be a little bit better early, to just alleviate his early jungle so he doesn't get dominated by Joseph, and then he's going to go towards the Crystal Power to bring him that burst to the table.
TSM, this is such a strange composition from them in a match that means so much. This match, they lose it to Cloud9 here at Scoundrel. It puts TSM in 2nd seed. Cloud9 will go to the Unified Western Live Championship as NA's #1 seed, which means that on day 2 they will play up against an easier European opponent than the TSM roster. And you know, historically, North American teams have trumped Europe at every live event. But you have to admit that Europe have been showing up this season. I think the most competitive summer season from Europe, and they are certainly looking for it. Oh, that's a huge stun onto Old School coming out of Flash X. Ordains him up, stops him from diving on in. Best Chuck trying to get in range, but they can't do so just yet. That's suppressing fire for Von C. Oh, Von C just styling all over, takes Old School down in a swift motion. And now this siege onto this turret is huge. With the suppressing fire on a CP Saw, he can do so much work. Joseph has to trampoline away. Best Chuck trying to find the snipes with the glimmer shots here. It is just going to be TSM disengaging.
So we can't really, I think it's hard to speculate about how Europe are going to do in the Unified Western Live Champions before we see them again, because categorically the only international performances between North America and Europe that we have seen so far, North America has pretty much crushed them. So again, we can say that Europe has been performing well in its own region, but I think the test is going to have to come when we actually get to LA in September for those Unified Championships. Now, why is CP so good against Petal? Well, specifically, there's a couple of reasons. Suppressing fire does a boatload of damage. Now, Petal has one of the lowest base healths in the game, meaning she's quite a squishy target, and Saw can chuck out suppressing fire, and there's very little way to punish him for it unless you commit Old School and Gabe Vizzle to trying to then afterburn him or get onto him and use the Holy Nova, which could be quite difficult. And also, suppressing fire in a line, when Petal commits to a target with her basic attacks, her minions all run in a clumped up group. If they run through a suppressing fire, they are going to get crushed before they get anywhere close to their target. So CP Saw is actually pretty good against Petal just for those specific reasons, and he can also run her down with the Dank Shank.
Although he puts that suppressing fire down, he plants himself in the ground and he becomes so vulnerable to Old School's afterburns there. That is just a mistake that TSM are going to have to be very careful of. Flash X, once he hits level 6 and unlocks the Fearsome Shade on the Batiste, can turn Cloud9 around, but it's Gabe Vizzle we're talking about. He can block anything, and oh gosh, this is Best Chuck in a lot of trouble. He's going to be caught up here. He looks for a kill in return, but will not find it. Gabe Vizzle going to go low. He may actually lose his life. No! He has so little HP, but he walks away like a boss, and it's going to be Cloud9 fighting too.
But TSM defend the turret. Cloud9, incredible dive. They really punished Von C for what I think was a fairly disrespectful use of suppressing fire against a Glaive and a Grace right under the C9 tower. I know that they were looking for a damage onto the turret, but realistically, you can't afford to plant yourself when it's so easy to just straight up afterburn you into the turret. Von C has to be a little bit more careful about his use of that suppressing fire. It needs to be specifically to try and target Petal. You can't just use it whenever you like. It is one of the major tools at zoning Petal away from fights. You use it and it doesn't hit. You become that target for Old School to look to punish. The only way you stop that is by Flash X using the Batiste Ordained to stop that afterburn from happening. But realistically, I think Von C is going to have to be really careful with his positioning here. Just like that, yeah, force the Petal away like that, and it's very hard to punish him for that move.
Certainly it does push Cloud9 back in, and that trampoline also cannot be used offensively after that. Gives TSM a bit of breathing room. You have to wonder how they are going to react to this turret now. Von C very far forward. Mad Cannon, there's the suppressing fire. He gets knocked up, blocked up. Von C trying to get out, but he's going so low. He does manage to walk away. Can TSM now find the damage? It is going to be a disengage from Cloud9. Fountains have been used on either side. Old School taking a lot of poke from this Kestrel, and that's a Shatterglass now finished for Von C.
Yeah, Von C's Shattered Glass is going to be a big spike for him. Huge CP scaling for the Saw. Old School goes down. Best Chuck pushes him down, and it's going to be another siege starting up here.
Fine intervention going on to Joseph to keep him in this position. Von C has a lot of damage, and Best Chuck is showing it. Gabe Vizzle goes in. Von C so low, but Von C walks away. Joseph now trying to find the return kill. The Minions just tanking up those glimmer shots. Von C hadn't cleared them out with the suppressing fire. TSM, a risky game with Old School coming back into the lane. I don't think they can stick around, and if they stick around for too long, they are dead. So now they will be forcing themselves back. Gabe Vizzle's looking for the benediction, but no one's in range.
Von C with the disrespect back as well as Old School makes his way back to the lane, working towards his Poison Shiv as his second item. Joseph has gone for the Shattered Glass himself, so huge amounts of healing and damage coming out from the spontaneous combustion, also making those Minions hit a little bit harder. Don't necessarily need the Frostburn in this case. Don't feel like chasing down is going to be your key directive. You're just looking to try and burst someone that Old School can isolate, and that's why the Shattered Glass is just that little bit better. It's a fairly immobile team from TSM, TSM, apart from obviously Best Chuck on this Kestrel, who can slip away with the active camo, but everybody else is fairly immobile, so therefore Frostburn isn't exactly an item that you would be looking to consider heavily. But Von C, when he's wound up, he's not moving anywhere anyway, so Frostburn's not going to be making a huge difference. TSM going to start up that siege again. Here we go.
Going to be Gabe Vizzle knocking him back. Von C, though, suppressing fire onto all three. Flash X going very low, but the Fountain keeps him alive. Divine Intervention will come out, and Old School will get healed. This match so important, Scoundrel. The #1 seed in North America still to be determined, and both these teams currently battling at it. It is a huge fight. Old School dives in, Flash X in trouble, but the suppressing fire almost finds the kill. Joseph low, Gabe Vizzle with a Holy Nova to survive, but he goes down nonetheless, and that's going to be TSM finding a kill for themselves. This turret surely going to fall as well.
Yeah, they've got a great siege here. Joseph, I don't know if he's going to be able to do enough. Flash X has gone for second item. Echo as well, and it provides a huge amount of teamfight control.
Joseph blocks up, heals himself with the spontaneous combustion. He's going to get away. Wow. Echo second item on Batiste. What does this mean, Scoundrel?
Basically just means he's looking to replicate his ultimate after he's used it. 2 Fearsome Shades, and Fearsome Shades fear the team away from that source of fear, which is always going to be the Batiste himself. It provides an incredible amount of teamfight control, and also tries to negate the Crucible that Gabe Vizzle's already picked up. You can Crucible 1, but you can't Crucible 2, and it means that you can force them away. Von C can get mad cannon hits for free, and hopefully, if you position it right, you fear them into a direct line of suppressing fire, meaning you get a huge amount of team-wide damage. C9 kind of threw that fight. Unfortunately, Old School knocked Von C out of the Holy Nova, which meant they weren't able to get the collapse and the damage from the spontaneous combustion onto multiple targets. But nevertheless, TSM recovered well, and a Flash X with that Echo Fearsome Shade managed to push them back and allow Von C to get huge damage with that suppressing fire. It's all about zone control here for TSM, getting people to line up into these skill shots, getting them into the firing range, as it's a Tyrant's Monocle here picked up for Vestric and A. They're going for potentially a contest around this gold mine.
Yeah, they are. Moving on in, the gold mine half HP. Flash gonna keep it engaged. There's Old School diving straight into Von C. Can he escape? Pops the boots, gets out. Oh, the Fearsome Shade! And the suppressing fire finding so much damage. TSM though, do they have any follow-up? It doesn't seem like they do. Echo wasn't used either by Flash X, not looking to re-engage this fight just yet. Gold Miner with minion candy put onto it. It's secured by TSM. The Fountain comes out, and now can they move in for more is the question. That's going to be Joseph taking a lot of damage. Von C knocked out. Old School with a Divine Intervention, but he gets taken down nonetheless. And now it's Gabe Vizzle running for his life. He dives back in, and that will be a double kill going over to Best Chuck and A.
So difficult for C9 to get past this huge amount of damage that Von C provides in that linear aspect. Oh, Joseph, nah, you're just dead.
Ace.
Ace for TSM. What a mistake coming out of Cloud9, and what an incredible play by TSM. Not often you see CP Saw come into the meta, and not often do you see CP Saw winning either. TSM really just showing that they have lots of tricks up their sleeve.
Well, Petal had been creeping back into the meta. People have been picking her up in specific scenarios. Obviously, she has got a pretty high win rate in solo queue across the world because she's very hard to play into. But this is a pick, I think, specifically designed to be brought into that as Joseph is working towards what looks to be... Will that be a Frostburn now, or is that going to be a second Shatterglass? Remember, Shatterglass also increases the almost tankiness, the health value of her minions, and maybe she's just trying to look to have them survive through that suppressing fire so that they can still be useful, even if they get caught in that particular skill shot. The Frostburn would be interesting because it means they're just trying to help Old School maybe pick up a target, make Von C difficult to chase down. If he gets frostburned as he tries to use the roadie run, that might mean that he doesn't actually seek his target as easily. I'm just wondering where this is going to specifically go for Joseph.
Decided to opt in for an infusion tends to be the case. The option of finishing a tier 3 item or getting an infusion in an impactful state of the game, many players will go for the infusion. It gives you cooldown reduction when it's CP, also extra crystal power as well, extra damage there. Now it is going to be TSM moving back into the lane, looking for a fight. That is a defensive move by Cloud9. They are clearly not ready to fight.
I don't feel like they're in position right now. Again, they are item spikes behind TSM. It's almost 4 items, offensive items here for Best Chuck. Very little damage output, you feel. Oh, whoa, this is an engage.
Old School gets stunned up, but that's a fearsome shape blocked though. Look at this, the second one comes out and Old School gets feared straight towards his Saw. Mad Cannon, it's crazy! The Aussie trying to find the kill, and it is going to be Saw finding it for himself. Now looking to try and Mad Max all over Joseph, and he will get it. It is 2 kills going all over TSM's way. And now it is going to be a turret going TSM's way as well. A double Shatterglass does come out for Petal, but it just seems like the damage output, the healthiness of these minions aren't enough yet. And TSM with a 6,000 gold lead at 14 minutes.
Even with double Shatterglass, I still feel that they're going to take a huge beating with how far Von-C is ahead in terms of item spike as well. He's working towards his Broken Myth, probably needs about, well, you say about 1,000 gold to be able to complete that at this point in time. But Joseph, maybe just strictly looking for burst damage as well. Looking specifically to just try and blow someone up. There isn't that much shielding. In fact, next to no shielding coming out for Von-C, Best Chuck, and FlashX only got that bit from his Fountain. So realistically, they're probably looking to just execute and blow up Von-C and have the Munions survive the suppressing fire to be able to actually get to their target. So that's maybe what C9 are looking for with this specific build from Joseph, because, Broken Myth might have been good, but it's a longer team fight where if the Munions don't survive, Petal's damage is done. So she needs her Munions to survive regardless, and this is probably the best way to have them do so.
Ooh, Von-C's been knocked out of position. Can they get the kills? The question. He's going to move back. There's spread fire. It blows up Joseph, and Best Chuck gets the kill credit. He runs away. He blocks up the Holy Nova. This is just TSM styling on Cloud9 right now. FlashX going to ordain Old School. Von-C's ready for the kill. There's the Mad Cannon. Sees the roadie run. He's going for the Dang Shank, but can't get in range. The suppressing fire will do the trick, and that should be Old School falling to a Dang Shank as well. Impressive. Cloud9 at 15:45. The Kraken ready to go. In fact, TSM, and they're going to secure this.
Should be a pretty easy secure for them. Joseph could come potentially through and create problems, but I don't think C9 want anything to do with this. They just need to back off and let TSM take it. The fights have been going TSM's way for the majority of the game here. Even when they managed to isolate Von-C, he's picked up armor, he's got a reflex block, he's a pretty tanky Saw at this point in time. The straight up burst damage output from TSM is just so good. And Joseph has to be worried about attacks from multiple angles. If Best Chuck catches him with those glimmer shots, he's dead. If Von-C catches him with that suppressing fire, he's dead. Petal is an incredibly squishy hero. He needs to be so careful about that positioning, but even through the Holy Shield, he's just getting absolutely blown up.
Is very exciting right now as TSM looking to win space and perhaps even equalize this impactful series. The seeding up for grabs. There's Old School diving on in. That's going to be the Kestrel knocked back, but the damage is just coming out TSM. Best Chuck's in the middle of the fight, but he's laying down work. A stun goes on to Old School, and TSM now trying to turn the fight in their favor. Gabe Vizzle looking for the 2-men Holy Nova. Old School knocks Best Chuck, but he doesn't get the kill. Joseph running. Here comes Saw. Von-C. Double kill, and that's going to be an unbeatable Saw. The Kraken is taking the base. TSM going to equalize this series. We're going to a game 3.
Who knew that if you just destroy Petal's Munions in every single instance, she's a pretty useless hero. That is one of her weaknesses. If you have the ability to just get her Munions off the fold, she becomes a very poor damage output hero because all of her damage comes through those. And Von-C and TSM seem to have found the remedy to an A-side Petal pick, which a lot of people would often say is kind of risky, and TSM definitely proved it right now.
And Von-C's, and he saw it is TSM taking the victory here in game 2. Let's throw it back to our desk as we get ready for game 3.
You know what, when he locked in the Saw, I wasn't convinced, but I'm happy to be proven wrong on that one. Von-C showing that every hero in Vainglory is viable competitively and showing how you can bring a CP Saw to the table.
Every hero except Alpha. Still the only hero without a win.
We've seen... Oh, actually, no, we haven't seen it win. Yeah, good point.
Womp womp.
Well,
But I told you about the CP Saw. He literally is the definition of anti-dive. You cannot dive him if he spun up, and you don't Atlas him. His ultimate just destroys everything in its path because of the missing health percent damage it does. On top of the Shank does 45% missing health if it's max. So that's a lot of missing health damage. So when you're low, you have to just back off. And TSM played this really well. Although the early game, they have a few skirmishes that they lost. but they again controlled the objective game. They played really well. They get a gold mine, ace, and second turret and a sentry at the 12-minute mark. And Old School just keeps getting blown up. He never landed any really good afterburns, and I said like Baptiste captain counters Glaive. So you can see when Glaive jumps in, that shank was hilarious. When Glaive jumps in, Flash was able to ordain him and minimize his impact. He got stunned by it, he got CC'd by it, and he couldn't get onto the Kestrel or the Saw because of their ability to shank away or to active cam away.
I think a key thing in this game was just waiting for Von C to get his reflex block, and then once he did, immediately TSM just started winning fights because the afterburn would no longer just knock him straight into the enemy team.
Yeah, it was definitely a turning point in the game, and one that TSM was able to really just kind of abuse that massive turnaround of being able to keep the Saw alive for even just a little bit longer in the fights was all that they needed.
Yeah, and that fight there specifically, Osu got stunned, and then another Ordain comes on. If you guys saw that, he actually echoed his Ordain, and Flash just completely countered Old School. Like, Old School could not dive, and Gabizzle with Grace couldn't even dive either because of the Fearsome Shade, etc. It was just too much damage coming out with Kestrel and Saw.
Yeah, and I love how Von C was just like somehow kiting on Saw around the edge of these fights. Let's take a look at some of the clips from the late game as well, because just watch Von C in these fights, how he somehow manages to keep doing damage on Saw, which is such a low mobility hero, but still somehow kiting things.
Yeah, using the roadie run really effectively to reposition himself during these fights when it was off cooldown, and then just that suppressing fire. It's so difficult to actually get onto the Saw if you get caught in the massive slow that comes out from the suppressing fire.
Yeah, you can see the damage coming out from Saw. Even with Divine Intervention, it just doesn't do much because of that missing health damage. I mean, look at the amount of damage. Look, Kestrel gets blows up Petal, and then Old School just can't kill Von C fast enough, and because of that, with their split focus, they lost the fight here as well.
And that fight was a perfect example of using the roadie run to reposition. He first uses it to get to the bottom of the fight, lays down a suppressing fire, and then the next roadie run is used to get up to the top of the fight, hitting the Grace to cut even more distance between himself and the Glaive from Old School. And again, plays like that are what keep you alive as this Saw.
I still just can't believe that we've just seen TSM win with the CP Saw. Just a few weeks ago, we saw them lock in a Captain Koshka. We were questioning whether it was even a real thing, and then they show us how it's done. The same has just happened with the CP Saw. I feel like this is a card they wanted to keep for finals, potentially, and this was something that they didn't want to show, but Cloud9, they pushed them. They got them to they got them 1-0 down, and now TSM, they've had to show their hand just a little bit.
And it comes down to the B side. Cloud9 won B side because they had a great counter pick into the Cruel pick from the side of TSM. And in this game, they had a great counter pick with Saw and Kestrel into the picks that Cloud9 have. So this is the crucial part between TSM and Cloud9 is you gotta be able to win the draft. And it's clearly shown here. Whoever wins draft normally will win the game.
And let's start to talk about draft, because now that this Saw pick is out in the open, we've got Captain Koshka also out there. There's the Catherine Batiste. There is so many different ways to build an incredibly strong composition in the current meta. Where do you even go with this? Like, how do you start off the draft?
I think you don't even worry about the Saw. I think that is purely only going to be a B-side counter pick.
Okay.
So I don't think you have to worry about it if you're Cloud9 here. It is going to be that Idris first picked again. We saw just how good Best Chuck was with that.
If they play this correctly, again, Idris is a mage, not a warrior. He's a mage, he's CP. Weapon Idris is a warrior. You want to kite with them, you want to get damage, get stacks. Wow, they first picked the Dodger because they don't want it to be banned against them. This is a very bad play from Cloud9. Grace, you definitely want to get that Grace. It's going to be banned against you, but then again, they're going to get Lyra or Grace anyways, so it's fine for them. But I feel like CP Idris, if played properly, outplays an Adagio. He's slow, he can't dodge the Chakram that fast. Late game, I believe CP Idris is better than Adagio.
We'll see if that's going to be the case here. Now Cloud9 looking towards this ban. Obviously, as you say, they don't want to ban one of the healers because that will mean the second one gets banned as well. But now TSM, they have the option of just not banning either Lyra or Grace and guaranteeing that each team gets one.
Yeah, and that's likely to be what they do here. and they'll ban away something that they would expect to go into the
Yeah.
jungle. Maybe something like the Kroll could be banned.
Saw.
Saw
I
if
think
they
they'll
think
ban
that-
Grace and deal with the Lyra here because Grace is just it's just too strong. If they want to run Cruel,
Do you think they'd be willing to
Yeah,
go
ban
into this
Grace.
game without a healer with an Idris?
that's fine. You have Cruel. You're gonna get Cruel, and there's no Grace to counter your Cruel, and then you're gonna force Cloud9 on either Lyra or Lance. If they pick Lance here, TSM gets Lyra. So this is why you ban Grace, because it just works for you in terms of the draft sequence. If you think of the different scenarios that can play out here. So Cloud9 is probably going to take Lyra here, because if they give Lyra CP Idris, they're going to lose the game. They have to take Lyra, but they can also take Lance and risk it. There's also Cath open, so they don't want to take Cath with Adagio. But I feel like Lyra is a key component here, because if TSM gets Lyra Cruel, that's going to be a really tough match against Cloud9 here.
So much for Cloud9 to think about, and only 35 seconds left on the clock for them to think it all through. And let's remember how important this game is. This is fighting for first seed. This is everything to Cloud9. They haven't won this matchup across this season, and they are going to lock in the Lyra.
Yeah, I would assume Catherine would be a likely pick here for Team
Catherine
Solomid
Kroll.
now. Catherine Kroll is just the lockdown with the Idris to do tons of damage from the backside. It'd be very similar to what they ran in game number 1, but obviously going to be hoping for a better result this time around.
There's no Grace now. They can do a Weapon Fortress again, maybe, but that won't work as well, because again, Grace was the reason why their comp lost. So Cruel Cath here is going to be really strong. Cloud9 can't really play Petal, because that means they have to go Weapon Adagio. They can't play Sky. So honestly, I don't think TSM should change their draft unless they have something crazy again, like another Saw pick. But Cruel and Cath will probably be because they play this comp, they know it really well, and I feel like they're going. Flash will get a Crucible this time. Will block the Adagio ultimate, and they're going to secure this game here. So let's see what Cloud9's going to do, because they don't have a lot of options to counter a Cruel and Cath combination.
Could we see something like a Grumpjaw come out here, like the classic double
That
heel
would be
Grumpjaw composition?
extremely
Tough.
risky.
It's early game would work, but Cruel and Cath would just shut that down, because once Grumpjaw's stunned and you do damage to him, he's going to lose all his living armor stacks, and he'll be very squishy. If anything, they should probably pick something to get onto the Idris, like a Black Feather that can like outplay the Cath and the Cruel, because there's not a lot of good options. You look at all the weapon carries, Glaive wouldn't be good either. Glaive will get stunned and locked down, but they're going to go with Glaive.
I mean, like, as you rightly said, there were so few options for them to go with. There was no really great pick for them to go with there, and TSM doing an excellent job in this draft, kind of drafting Cloud9 into a hole, but then we saw in game 1, you know, it's not like this Cloud9 draft is terrible. It's not like they can't win with this draft, and we've seen that they can do work on the Glaive as well. How are we feeling these guys have to play then? Obviously, the Crawl on the side of TSM, you assume that they're going to be the aggressive one in this early game.
If they get a pick, then dive, I would like them to play CP Idris the way he's meant to be played. His win condition is a stack broken myth, poke, 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 force an awkward dive, jump on the Glaive, focus him down, and just kite. Like, CP Idris is not a dive hero, he's more of a poke, he's a mage. So if they play it that way, they're going to win this game.
Okay, what are you thinking, Bacon?
Yeah, absolutely. It's the same thing as game number 1. If they allow the Idris to stack up before going for the all-in engage, that's how Team Solomid wins these fights.
All right, well, we'll see whether they can bring that to pass. We're going to game 3 here in the North American Vainglory8. It's time to see whether TSM or Cloud9 are going to be our first seed. Moving on to the Unified Western Live Championship. Let us know who you want to take it. Hashtag Vainglory8 on Twitter. But it's time to get into the third game of this El Clasico matchup. TSM going up against Cloud9.
This has become the staple matchup of North America here. TSM versus Cloud9, constantly battling, but Cloud9 have not dropped a series since Split 2 started here in the summer season. And right now, Scoundrel, they are looking to push it home with this composition. TSM, exact same composition from game 1. Let's see if they can make it work here in game 3.
Basically a replica of what we saw in game 1 as well, as C9 push into the TSM jungle. Are going to be Idris of Bestchuck just going to the backside jungle and taking away those camps from C9. Basically, carbon copy of what we saw here.
Literally the same thing. Are we sure we're not just watching game 1 on repeat? No, we can definitely say that we're not, because there's now a Glaive and a Lyra. And I think that's important to talk about. Let's talk about the Glaive and the Lyra now for Cloud9. How does this change the win dynamics of Cloud9 and I guess TSM as well? Oh, FlashX steals that away. Nice stuff from FlashX and a mistake from Cloud9.
So the dynamic changes here is that against a CP Idris, especially Bestchuk and a CP Idris, those Divine Interventions granted a 40% damage reduction onto that target for the duration of the Divine Intervention channel, which is really, really good at preventing a chakram damage, but also a stacked up broken with basic attack from Bestchuk and A2. It's less about that now. They don't have the damage reduction with C9. They've simply, wait a second.
Yeah, Bestchuk and A is caught royally out of position here. And this is looking like it's going to be a first blood to Old School. No, it gets sniped away by Gabe Vizzle, but Cloud9 on the board.
They're going to look to essentially shove this minion wave into turret to deny Bestchuk and Ace some of his minions, which is actually pretty big. They are then going to look to collapse as a unit and try and push into Von C's jungle, but Von C's quite happily taking away his backs and won't lose too much off the back of that. But a really, really good early aggressive gank here by C9. Put some pressure onto Bestchuk, who was able to go and get those back minions away, so it felt like he was off to a good start. But you were talking about the C9 composition without the Grace, Dalsy. Now you add the Lyra in, it's a lot more about burst heal. They have got more mobility in this particular composition, but that's going to be slightly worse, I feel, against this Idris. You don't have the damage reduction, which I feel was just so important in the last game, Dalsy. And Echo obviously not as picked up as by a Lyra. It's not as an item that you go as early as a Grace would, for instance. So you're only going to have that one impactful heal, maybe two impactful heals in the fight. So I think genuinely think TSM are better here.
Scoundrel. Something we talked about was the lack of Crucible for FlashX in the previous game. Really strange build path, I think you could say, for FlashX.
Yeah.
You know, rushing the Null Wave, then the Echo, and then there was no Crucible, I don't think, towards the end. Is this something that has to change up for TSM?
Yes, because you've got the cruel Catherine again. Now, 3J talked quite extensively about how the CP Idris should be played this game. Like, played at range, played like a mage. But if TSM want to make use of the cruel, they can't really do that. Like, cruel is not... He can peel with the weakness stacks, but realistically, you are supposed to look to dive with cruel as much as you can. So you need to protect that portion of your composition from being locked up by a massive Verse of Judgment. And the best way to do that is by having a Crucible. So absolutely feel Crucible is necessary.
Let's see how this gets played out. FlashX going to get afterburned into Cloud9, but he's a bit of a tanky Catherine, so he's able to survive. Bestchuk NA currently keeping up with CS despite the early aggression in the first blood to him. Last time he played the CP Idris earlier on today, he was averaging 12 CS a minute. Pretty impressive stuff. You have to wonder if he's able to do so this game due to the early lead that Cloud9 gathered. Right now, things very even. 8,700 gold to everyone as the jungle intensifies.
They're just going to back off here, pick up some early items going towards what's either going to be a Shattered Glass. I imagine it'll be a Shattered Glass. Frostburn wouldn't be awful here because of the mobility of the C9 composition. You know, you've got the Lyra speed up, you've got Joseph who's going to look to dive as much as possible. But you do have the protection of the Catherine. She can stun that kind of aggressive move from Joseph. So Shattered Glass is just straight up better for trying to burst Old School, but Frostburn obviously better at trying to peel backwards and play the way that Suijay suggested, which is that sort of ranged mage play, just looking to kite backwards and stack up broken misstacks like that.
Right now, it is just this scaling game for Bestchuk NA. Von C, level 5, he is very close to hitting that level 6, and that is such an impactful position for the Cruel. He'll have that ultimate unlock from Hell's Heart, can throw that ghoul sword out and try and stun someone. In the previous time, it was Gabe Vizzle just styling on TSM and blocking stun after stun, keeping Old School alive. TSM will be looking to try and change up that execution. They need to. Level 6 is here for Von C's Cruel. Let's see where they go. It is going to be Gabe Vizzle focused on down. There's the stun onto Joseph. Lots of damage to FlashX. A fountain forced from Gabe Vizzle. FlashX still holding on to his. Currently TSM just going to fall back, not wanting to continue on in without finding a kill with that Cruel.
One of the major issues that TSM had is they tried to chain CC, especially post 6, but it always kept landed onto Gabe Vizzle, and then they were trying to focus Gabe Vizzle when he wasn't going down. Want to see TSM change it up. They just tried to focus Gabe again, Again, potentially the wrong move in my eyes. Shatterglass has been completed. He's going for that burst damage. And look at this. Instead of Tension Bow, we have got Poison Shiv prioritized. And I like that from Von C. You're against a heavy double sustain composition. You need the Mortal Wounds online as quickly as possible. It's not about the burst. You're looking to get to late game realistically. Just look to shut down the heals. And if you do get locked in these team fights and skirmishes at this point in the game, it's all about your ability to try and focus a target without the bail of the double heal coming through to save them.
Joseph's moving into the lane here. He's unspotted. Flash X looking for aggressive moves. Vonsi ult up in just a couple of seconds. Here comes the engage out TSM. Joseph stunned up. The fountain keeps him alive, but it's not enough. The smite comes down, and that's going to be Vonsi taking Joseph to hell. TSM with a kill here in the lane. Can they get anything from it is the question. It's not going to change the gold lead if they aren't able to get objectives, so you have to wonder where they move now.
Yeah, absolutely. Best Chicken A and Flash X going to get pushed back here. Old School and Gavizzle still very healthy. You saw the work that the Poison Shiv did in that fight, as well as that CC chain. Gavizzle's going to jump in. They're going to look for another gank.
They are. Old School takes a lot of damage. Vonsi, though, charging up his passive. He's going to come in. Gavizzle going to be focused, but TSM have disengaged. Perhaps just a little bit of missed timing there from Von C, wanting to have his movement speed buff. Cloud9 are looking to aggress as a unit, pushing into Von C's jungle here, looking to secure his front treant, and they will be able to do that very simply. I wonder if they do anything else here. It's going to be Joseph starting up this gold miner. I love this move. They know exactly where the Cruel is. He's not going to be in a position to contest. TSM are starting to move up. A Chakram could steal this away, but the health bar is invisible.
Oh, he gets it!
He stole it! What a god! You couldn't see the health bar there. It was blocked up perfectly by Cloud9's own, but that meant they couldn't see it either. And it was just a 50-50 at the end of the day.
Everything going wrong for C9 there. They stun up Gavizzle as well. He's got the portal, but can't use it, Dalsy. Oh,
Silence.
my word. They just catch him out.
This is a gold lead forming for TSM. This is unusual from Cloud9. This season, they have been the macro Godzik scoundrels, the rotation, the objectives, their map play, their team fighting, and when they go for the timings has just been so on point. But mistake after mistake has given TSM a 1,500 gold lead. Alternating currents finished for Best Chuck's Idris right now. Vonsi's now got the Tension Bow as well. Second item here. And maybe they've just figured out the combination to take down Cloud9's Adagio, Old School's Adagio.
Absolutely, the burst damage is there. They have the Atlas Pauldrons again. Interesting that Flash X looks to prioritize that. Again, pretty good into Old School's alternating current, and we'll get double efficacy when I Love Joseph picks up his Poison Shiv. So you have two targets that will sort of be affected by Atlas Pauldrons, and both of which will have a decent effect for TSM. But I would love to see Flash X go the Crucible next. I think if you are looking to play an aggressive style, if you're looking to even get into position to use those Atlas Pauldrons, for instance, you need the ability to protect your team by doing so. So that's by having the Crucible against that Verse of Judgment. So really want to see Flash X do that.
Von C moving up. It is Gavizzle in the bush spotting them out. TSM have out-rotated Cloud9. That's Old School going back to finish the Broken Myth, but they don't have vision of this Adagio, and so they don't necessarily know that they had a chance to perhaps push an advantage. At 10 minutes, we've got S-Chuck looking to get as much gold as possible. He hasn't quite hit the 12 CS a minute of the previous game at 10, but he's certainly keeping up with Old School. In fact, has an advantage over Old School in the lane, and he's currently just double jungling with Von C, getting experience on this Idris and extra gold income.
Absolutely. Now going to move back towards lane. Idris's wave clear really good. Like that C9 aren't pushing. Actually, they are managing to freeze this lane working towards them, which means they're not going to make it easy for Best Chuck and 8 to move over. Now they finally see them return to lane and going to start to push things back as both Gavizzle and I Love Joseph back off here, which means they can't really freeze effectively, and Old School just going to be waiting for that wave to come towards him as Best Chuck and 8 shoves it in. Here we go. He's by himself. I think TSM looking to potentially change some CC here.
They're just going straight for the threat. Minion wave clear very quickly, but Gavizzle going to portal straight on in. Doesn't find any engage. Joseph was unwilling to pull the trigger there with his afterburn. Cloud9 now going to get aggressed upon as Vonsi moves on in. Just looks on out. That's a stun onto Joseph. That's a lot of damage as well. Gabe Fizzle holding on to his abilities, not looking for anything. Look at the inventory as well of Flash X, another talking point Scoundrel. He is going towards the Crucible as a second item.
Absolutely think that's warranted. I think he's learned the errors of the previous game. You don't necessarily need the No Wave Gauntlet because you don't have a Grace that you're going up against as well. So like this, nice block.
That is a huge block from Gabe Fizzle. What can they do with it? Joseph in trouble. Fountain will keep him alive. The turret's going to go down. Mortal Wounds as well means that Joseph doesn't get healed a full amount. Reduces the the healing by 33%. TSM, that pushes their gold lead up to just about 3,500 here at Scoundrel. Best Chuck and A has the gold in inventory as well. He's going to get very close to finishing this Broken Myths shortly.
Looks like Old School and taking a leaf out of the previous game, knowing that maybe he needs to go for damage items a little bit more readily and quickly than he did previously. Looks like he's working towards his next damage item, which, if we were to go on his previous build, will be a Frostburn. Good way to chase down Best Chuck and A here. Have to be careful. He gets stolen.
Steals and counter steals. It's an engage. It's going to be Vonsi. No fear. Just fight. TSM looking to blow up Cloud9. And that's going to be the first kill going over to Vonsi. Joseph now in trouble. Best Chuck, look at the damage. Can they get the kill? It's going to be a Sigil speeding up, but a Hell's Heart straight into Gabe Fizzle, and now he's going to have to portal away. Vonsi's going to go down to the Crystal Sentry. No fear, certainly that minion candy on the Sentry means it packs a punch. A 1-for-1 trade going over, but more importantly, the gold mine stolen in favor of Cloud9.
Yeah, they take one back, and now Goldmine is equal beyond the both teams. Just want to point out how effective that Crucible was, Dalsy, in that fight. Blocking the Verse of Judgment is not only effective, obviously, for protecting your team, but when a CP Adagio chooses to channel the Verse of Judgment, especially against something like a Cruel and a Catherine, and even a CP Idris, he becomes a very vulnerable target for the pure reason that he has stood still. Now, C9 get a turret there. That's obviously going to happen because they managed just to force TSM back, but he becomes a very static target, Dalsy. And that static target means he's more vulnerable to everybody on the TSM composition. So by blocking the stun part, you don't let him get away with it, and you can kill him really quickly, meaning that in future fights, Old School is now going to be more reluctant to channel that Vase of Judgment, knowing it's quite easy to focus him when he does so.
Yeah, no, this is quite an interesting dynamic. The mind games, does that allow Best Chuck to move further aggressive, knowing that he may not have to kite back to avoid this Burst of Judgment? Hell's Heart. Oh, that connects. There's no block coming out of Old School. He's taking a lot of damage. Joseph able to peel back. Crucible going to block up that silence from Flash X. TSM just force position. Cloud9 do have to fall back, but there's nothing necessarily won just yet by TSM.
No, but they have all their items still available. They've got Fountain, they've got Crucible, got everything to work with right now. Vonsi's going to go for this Crystal Sentry. It's really good use of a fight win to just go and take something off the map. They're going to even force a fight here.
Yeah, stun straight onto Joseph. There's no Fountain available for this Glaive. Look at the Best Chuck stats. That's a kill going over to Vonsi. And TSM are now moving in. Cloud9 feel like they're crumbling here under the TSM pressure. They have been kings of NA for so long, and Old School just gets stunned and blown up by Best Chuck and A. That's the turret going down. The gold is just snowballing in the favor of TSM. They are moving further and further ahead in such a penultimate series of North America.
It's so interesting because TSM over the last couple of weeks, they haven't looked the same TSM that we have known across pretty much every VG8 split this year, Dalsy. They looked kind of like they were tapering off a little bit in the last 2 weeks. C9 were picking up the pace and bringing those points back to within contention, because if we started this split, everybody said TSM guaranteed first seed if they continue the way that they've been playing. And it takes this kind of game to bring the best out of TSM. I always feel like this when we see C9 play TSM in the VG8. They bring the best out of each other, both in innovation, game strategy, and execution. And TSM look like they have the upper hand in this decisive game to decide who takes that first seed going into the North American and Unified Western Live Championships.
Very exciting stuff, Scoundrel, for sure. TSM with just a 4,500 gold lead, despite the dominance that they have shown. It's enough to be warranting an advantage for them. That's roughly 1.5 tier 3 items, depending on what you're building. Where is Flash X sitting? Has himself the energy battery means an Echo's likely on the cards next for this Catherine. TSM moving in for a fight, but it's going to be Gabe Fizzle engaging. Joseph taking a lot of damage, looking to block up, take down this Idris. He's in trouble. Best Chuck with the heals, but he goes down. It's going to be a kill, a Thirst of Judgment, but it only puts him in a bad position as Cruel finds one. Von C, no fear, finds a second. No, he doesn't. He can't get the smite because it's not yet available. FlashX going to chase down this Glaive, looking for the kill, and it is going to be the Crystal Sentry getting involved. Joseph is likely going to lose his life straight to that, and TSM with 2 kills and the Cruel standing, looking for this Kraken.
And because they spent so long trying to focus down Chuck in that fight, and Chuck survived for such a long period of time, Von C excels, Cruel excels in fights that go on for a very long time because those weakness stacks build up. You can find the damage, and obviously you can look for those executing smites. Dalsy, you pointed it out perfectly, a point that we have discussed quite heavily when it comes to CP Adagio. Channeling the Verse of Judgment makes you just as vulnerable as it does threatening. And TSM with that Crucible now have the ability to punish Old School when he chooses to use that ability. They get the Kraken. Gabe didn't manage to find the steal too early with the Sigil, and now TSM look to push into the Cloud9 base.
Yeah, not only that, they just gave a huge amount of gold to FlashX. He can afford to buy that Echo. And there it is, comes through. This next team fight is going to be so decisive for TSM. If they can pull their combination off, it's huge. A bait bush for Cloud9 gets spotted up with a flare, so simply shut down. The choke point turret now under siege by TSM as the Kraken comes in. There's the first one going out, it's blocked up. Here comes a Hell's Heart, it isn't going to connect. Old School though in the middle of the fight. Best Chuck, it doesn't matter, he's got the kill, and now it is this Glaive running for his life as Best Chuck decides to focus on the game. This is it. I don't think that Cloud9 can defend as Cruel Von C chases his counterpart across the map. It's going to be easy pickings for Best Chuck CP Idris. GG to TSM here, man. What an incredible series from them, and what an incredible adaptation as well, Scoundrel, to figure out what went wrong in game 1, play the same composition, and do it to such success.
FlashX and Von C played so much better with this composition this time round. You saw how impactful the Crucibles were in those fights. It's such a conundrum for a CP Adagio to make that kind of play, and when you have the ability to not let him get away with using that verse and punish him for it, it makes him such an easy target. That was the key difference for me in these fights, Dalsy. I think that it almost boils down to that, but also how aggressive TSM were able to be, as well with Von C getting a little bit ahead. They weren't punished in the early game, and again, obviously, Best Chuck and Ace Idris, always good.
TSM #1 in North America. Finals coming up very shortly. They will face up against Immortals. Very exciting stuff. Let's break down that series win with Munchable at the desk.
There we have it. TSM are going to take the series in the end, but it was not an easy series for them to take. That last game, though, they managed to get on top of things and managed to take it in the end. What a treat this entire best of 3 has been to
that
witness.
Was crazy fun and exciting to watch. And I just want to break down draft. Kath counters Lyra. Glaive is countered by Cruel, and CP Idris beats Adagio late game. So I felt like Cloud9 drafted themselves in the corner by first picking Adagio. They should have picked Catherine, which counters Idris, and then ban away the Grace or something. So I felt like it was little mistakes, and you can see why you in draft, especially against